Switching your dog's diet from kibble to the Barf diet can transform their health, energy, and longevity. But this change needs to be made with care, planning, and knowledge. In this full video, you'll learn how to transition to the Barf diet without causing stress, diarrhea, or food refusal. This video is ideal for beginners and experienced tutors who want to ensure safety and efficiency in natural food. Your dog deserves more health and less processed foods, and you can provide this with the right guidance. Watch until the end to put together your own Barf transition protocol and ensure a hassle-free fitting. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new videos about natural nutrition, Barf, and real healthy dog care. The decision to abandon industrialized food and start a raw natural diet for your dog is, without a doubt, one of the most transformative steps in the life of a conscious owner. But just as important as what goes into the feeder is how this transition happens. Changing an animal's diet involves more than replacing one food with another. It is about re-educating the dog's body, restoring physiological processes that have been dormant for years, and allowing the body to relearn how to digest, absorb, and use ingredients as closely as possible to what nature designed. The problem is that many owners start the Barf diet with enthusiasm, but without planning. Result: diarrhea, vomiting, refusal to eat, skin inflammations, and fear of continuing. This leads to early quitting and returning to kibble, just when the dog was about to benefit from the change. To avoid this cycle of frustration, it is essential to understand that the food transition requires strategy, patience, and monitoring. The first critical point is to understand your dog's digestive origin. Dogs who have spent their entire lives eating kibble, especially dry, high-carbohydrate, low-moisture kibble, have developed a gut microbiota adapted to this environment. In a simplified way, their intestine waits for starch, byproducts, and additives. When this routine is abruptly broken with raw meats, bones, and offal, the bacterial flora collapses. This does not mean that Barf is bad. It just means that the body needs time to relearn how to function with what, in fact, is the most physiological thing for it. Therefore, the golden rule of transition is start slowly with a single type of lean meat and no bones in the first few days. Ideally, you should start with easily digestible protein, such as ground raw chicken breast, combined with a specific canine probiotic to support the microbiota. Do not mix viscera, vegetables, bones, or supplements in the first few days. This minimalist approach allows the dog's digestive system to focus solely on assimilating the new protein. The second step, after 3 to 5 days without adverse reactions, is to gradually introduce other proteins, such as lean beef, lamb, or pork, always in small amounts and observing the body's response. The order of introduction must respect individual sensitivity, starting with the most common meats and leaving the densest or most exotic, such as fish, duck, or wild boar, for more advanced stages. This process can last anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the dog's age, medical history, and digestive sensitivity. Another essential point is the management of the initial fast. Many protocols recommend a 12 to 24-hour fast before the first raw meal. This is not an absolute rule, but rather a tool to zero the digestive system, allowing the body to receive the new food without interference from the residues of the previous food. However, dogs with hypoglycemia, puppies, or animals with a history of fasting vomiting should not be subjected to this practice without veterinary supervision. In addition, the texture and temperature of the food are also decisive. Too cold meats, straight from the refrigerator, can cause vomiting and gastric discomfort. Ideally, the meal should be offered at room temperature, slightly warmed in a bain-marie, never in the microwave. The texture should be pasty and homogeneous at first, avoiding large pieces or bones that can hinder chewing and digestion. The transition to Barf must also consider the time and environment of meals. Anxiety is a factor that directly influences the digestive process. Therefore, feeding time should be quiet, without excessive noise, other dogs around, or haste. Some dogs take days to accept the new texture and smell of raw food. This is natural, especially in dogs that have spent years eating flavored artificial food. To facilitate acceptance, it is possible to slightly heat the meat at first without cooking it, just to release aroma, or even use natural bone broths to moisten the portion. During the first 15 days, the ideal is for the tutor to record everything: amount offered, time, acceptance, feces, energy, hydration, and changes in skin or breath. This food diary is a powerful tool to understand the dog's rhythm and adjust the protocol, in addition to serving as a basis for future corrections with the support of a professional. Another common mistake in this process is wanting to compensate for the nutritional past with an exaggeration of supplements right at the beginning. This is a mistake. The body needs to adapt before receiving calcium, fish oil, enzymes, or probiotics in high doses. Supplementation should be done only when the basic ingredients have already been well accepted and always based on the dog's real needs. No putting together a functional shake with 15 items in the first week. After the dog has successfully gone through the initial phase of the transition, with simple lean meats and good digestive acceptance, the next step is to build layer by layer what we call the complete structure of the Barf diet: meat, fleshy bone, offal, vegetables, and functional supplementation. But beware, it is not a matter of mixing everything at once. The secret is to respect the time of the animal's body and insert each element in the right order, with balance and clinical observation. The first addition to be made is the raw fleshy bones. They are fundamental for several reasons. They provide bioavailable calcium, phosphorus in natural balance, collagen, fat, and a mechanical base for chewing, which stimulates jaw muscle tone, cleans teeth, and offers mental stimulation. But bones are also the most sensitive point of the transition. If offered early, in dogs with no experience or with an unbalanced microbiota, they can cause constipation, whitish stools, vomiting, or intestinal obstructions. Therefore, the ideal is to start with soft bones rich in meat, such as chicken neck, wings, or pork ribs, always with the portion proportional to the size of the dog. These bones should be raw, fresh, and never cooked, as heat alters their structure, making them brittle and dangerous. The introduction should be done gradually, once or twice a week in the first few weeks, observing the stool and digestive behavior. The tutor should know that the appearance of the stool can change temporarily, becoming firmer or even whitish, but the important thing is to observe frequency, effort when evacuating, and the presence of mucus or blood. With the bones accepted, the viscera stage enters, potent in nutritional density, but highly concentrated and capable of causing intestinal reactions if poorly dosed. The viscera should follow the approximate proportion of 5 to 10% of the diet, with emphasis on the liver, source of vitamin A, iron, and copper, kidney, zinc, and selenium, and spleen, iron, and antioxidants. You should never introduce all types at the same time. Start with beef or chicken liver in micro portions mixed into the meat, and only increase the amount after full acceptance. It is important to note that some dogs have an initial aversion to the smell of the viscera, especially if they are very raw or cold. A practical tip is to blend the viscera in a blender and freeze them in small portions, such as ice cubes, to facilitate handling and ensure stable portions. The next layer of the transition is low glycemic vegetables and fruits, used in smaller proportions on the Barf diet, usually 5 to 15%. They provide fiber, antioxidants, polyphenols, and secondary vitamins that help modulate the gut microbiota and support the liver and kidneys. But by nature, dogs don't have enough enzymes to digest cellulose from raw vegetables. Therefore, it is essential to steam or blend the vegetables in the mixer before offering them. Good options include zucchini, chayote, carrots, broccoli, spinach, seedless apples, strawberries, and blueberries. The introduction of vegetables should be gradual. Start with a single plant source and observe the response of the gastrointestinal tract. In dogs with digestive sensitivity, plant fiber can cause gas, soft stools, or food refusal. The ideal combination varies from dog to dog and should be adjusted over time. At this point, the dog will have already gone through at least 4 weeks of adaptation. Your body will be getting used to processing raw foods, different textures, temperature variations, and nutritional densities. And this is where functional supplementation starts to make sense, not as an optional plus, but as an essential support to correct the gaps of the base diet. Among the most suitable supplements for this phase are omega-3, EPA, DHA, preferably from wild fish or anchovies to reduce inflammation and improve the coat. Vitamin E, always associated with the use of oil, to prevent cellular oxidation. Chelated zinc, important for skin, immunity, and cellular metabolism. Controlled iodine, kelp in microdoses, for thyroid support, especially in diets with little marine diversity. Probiotics and digestive enzymes, as additional support in dogs with a history of dysbiosis, microbiota rescue, or sensitivity. The order in which these supplements are inserted also matters. They should be added one at a time, with an interval of 3 to 5 days between each one, to identify possible adverse reactions. The dosage needs to be calculated based on the animal's weight, individual nutritional requirements, and, whenever possible, monitored by a veterinary nutritionist. An additional care is with hydration. The raw diet provides more moisture than kibble, but still, during the transition, many dogs drink less water, especially if they are getting fattier meats or fewer vegetables. Therefore, it is worth using natural bone broths or warm water over food to keep the renal system functioning efficiently. Elderly dogs or dogs with urinary sensitivity require special attention at this point. With all these steps applied carefully, the tutor will be able to notice clear signs of successful adaptation: firm and regular stools, increased energy and disposition, reduction of body odor and halitosis, brighter coat and no excessive shedding, lighter eyes without discharge, reduction of itching or signs of skin inflammation, improved digestion and absence of flatulence. When the transition to the Barf diet is done with awareness, patience, and planning, the results speak for themselves. The dog starts to have a visibly more robust health, with reflections on behavior, immunity, and even longevity. But it is precisely after the successful adaptation that the real challenge begins, the sustainable and balanced maintenance of the natural diet over the months and years. It is at this point that many well-intentioned tutors make silent mistakes, due to overconfidence, improvisation, or lack of revision. The first step to ensure sustainability is to understand that the Barf diet cannot be repetitive. Even with good sources of meat, bone, and offal, repeating the same proteins over and over again can lead to nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, and even food sensitivities. The ideal is to maintain a weekly or bi-weekly protein rotation, alternating between meats of different species, chicken, beef, pork, lamb, fish, rabbit, and eventually exotic meats, such as duck, wild boar, or quail if available. Each protein has a different profile of amino acids, fats, minerals, and vitamins, and it is precisely this variation that ensures the nutritional richness of the diet. When planning the rotation, the tutor must also consider the variation of viscera and bones. Alternating chicken liver with beef liver, kidney with spleen, chicken neck with pork ribs, or duck wing allows you to naturally adjust the proportions and avoid overloading. In addition, it is important to respect the principle of density versus digestibility. Denser meats, such as beef or heart, require more digestion time and can be used with more spacing, while lighter meats, such as chicken and fish, work well on consecutive days. Another essential tool is the weekly planning of menus. This not only facilitates the tutor's routine, but also ensures nutritional balance over time. A weekly menu should contain at least 3 different types of muscle meat, 2 types of fleshy bone with variations in hardness, 2 or 3 types of viscera in calculated proportions, a selection of vegetables and fruits with complementary properties. Supplements adjusted according to the dog's life stages, weight, laboratory tests, and activity level. Practical organization also directly impacts adherence to the diet. The ideal is to prepare food in daily portions, stored in glass or silicone containers, and frozen with date, protein, and content identification. This strategy avoids waste, cross-contamination, and dosing errors. Defrosting should be done slowly and naturally, in the refrigerator or at room temperature with protection, never under hot water or microwave. In addition to the nutritional aspect, the eating routine must also be accompanied by periodic evaluation. Controlled laboratory tests are recommended every 4 to 6 months, especially in dogs that are elderly, have a history of disease, or are growing. Blood counts, liver and kidney panels, electrolyte evaluation, stool tests, and when possible, mineral analysis by spectrometry are the most suitable tools to validate the dietary protocol. Another key point in maintaining Barf is responsible flexibility. Many tutors, due to lack of planning or traveling, resort to food occasionally. This is not prohibited, but it must be done strategically. The ideal is to use a quality feed with a lower glycemic load and rich in animal protein, and never alternate abruptly between the 2 types of feed. For specific situations, there are also options for dehydrated or freeze-dried Barf foods on the market, which offer practicality with a composition closer to the natural diet. It is also essential to know the warning signs that indicate that something may be wrong, even in dogs that have been on Barf for months. Unexplained weight loss, dull coat or persistent shedding, recurring itching or inflammation of the skin, softened or mucus-filled stools for more than 3 days, excessive apathy or tiredness, frequent refusal to eat without emotional justification. In these cases, the first attitude should be to reevaluate the menu, supplements, and general diet. Management. Often, the owner increases the fat without realizing it or maintains the same proportion of liver for too long. Barf requires constant attention and should not be driven on autopilot. On the other hand, the signs that the diet is being correctly applied are clear and encouraging. Stable energy throughout the day, focus and disposition during exercise, shiny coat with less odor, clean teeth, no visible tartar, quiet breathing, and no halitosis, clear eyes with no secretions, consistent stools in smaller volume and with reduced odor. In the long run, well-managed Barf significantly reduces the risk of chronic disease, improves the dog's physical and cognitive performance, reduces medication and emergency visit costs, and most importantly, increases quality of life and life expectancy. Adopting raw natural food is more than a food choice. It is a commitment to the biology, health, and individuality of a being that depends completely on our decisions. And like any worthwhile journey, it requires constancy, knowledge, and above all, presence.